Hi, this is Carol Oppenheim with ADSS Global in Baltimore, Maryland in the USA. I'm going to review the new 1099 features in Sage 300. This only pertains to the product updates that were released in December 2023. So this is product update 1 for version 2024, product update 5 for version 2023, and product update 7 for version 2022. If you want to confirm your version, you just click up here on About and you choose System Info, and you can see that I'm version 2023 product update 5. Any other versions will not have what I'm about to show you. So with the new product updates, you've got a few new 1099 types, which we're going to see shortly. You can now process dividends and interest. I think interest actually came in last year. It also is continuing to use Aatrix for your filing, and we'll talk about that shortly. It also has added some additional fields that were missing last year when we first rolled out the Aatrix process, and it just made things a little more difficult. So I'm going to show you those fields first. So let's pull up vendors under AP vendors, and I'm going to show you a couple 1099able vendors. So the first one in the sample data is Chloride Systems, and you can see on the invoicing tab, of course, it's the same. You've got your tax reporting 1099. CPRS, by the way, is the Canadian equivalent. So those of us in the US will not be choosing CPRS. And then you've got your tax ID. You've got to identify the tax ID type. So unknown, you're going to get an error. So you've got to, get that scrubbed up and set up before you try to file. So in this example, this is an employer ID. Of course, the code is, whatever code, in this case, other income. There's another new field called tax withholding state. That's actually the tax filing state. So that has nothing to do with the fact that you have withholding, although if you do have withholding, it's important as well. So anyway, you're going to want to put that in your vendor. I live in Maryland, so my company, if it's in Maryland, my withholding state's always going to be Maryland, okay? The other two new fields are the first and last name. This only is important if you've got a vendor that's flagged as having a social security number. So let's look at one with a social. All right, so you can see this one is a social. You can kind of tell by the way it's set with 3 segments rather than 2. So since it's flagged as a social security number, I have entered the first name and the last name in this vendor, okay? That is required. We'll see that soon when we get into Aatrix. Other things I want to make note of: certain special characters will be rejected by the IRS, so you need to scrub them out. You can do that in Aatrix, but you're also going to want to clean up your Sage database so you don't have to make the same cleanup every single year. Things that are disallowed are commas and periods and special characters in the name and address fields. So if it's Donald J. Smith, comma, Jr., you're going to need to get rid of that comma. If it's something Inc., you got to get rid of the period. If you have a P.O. box, it can't be P period O period box, or you're going to get an error in Aatrix. And the reason for that is the IRS disallows those characters. So that would be a cleanup that you might need to do in Sage. So we're finished looking at the vendors. The other thing you're going to want to just take a look at is in Common Services Company Profile. You're going to want to make sure there are no periods in your address or your name. So Sample Company Inc., we do not want it to have a period at the end of the Inc., because that is going to be complained about. You also want to make sure that your tax ID is populated along with your legal name. Make sure that you've got something numeric in address line 1. So you wouldn't want it to say unit 123 in address line 1. You could put that in address line 2. If you've got an apartment number, you can't have a pound sign. So those are just things you're going to want to understand, because again, that is how e-filing would get rejected. All right, so now that we have cleaned all of that up and populated the new fields, we're going to now move forward and look at our vendors. Okay, so I'm going to go into, I'm going to actually close this because I just updated my Aatrix. So we'll close that, and now we're going to go into our vendor reports. We're going to go to 1099 filing. You've got choices. You do each filing separately, so non-employee compensation is NEC, miscellaneous, which would be other income, attorney fees, rents, that's miscellaneous, interest, dividends, that's separate as well. I'm going to start with NEC. I'm looking at my company. You do need to add an email for your 1099 contact. I just made something up here since it's sample data. Now I'm going to click process. So now what it's going to do is it's going to start loading my 1099 data into the Aatrix form. So it's going to take a minute. So you want to make sure, of course, the year's correct. So we'll give that a moment. Okay, I paused the video because my Aatrix required an automatic update, and that takes a while. What can happen is when you click on process, if the forms haven't been updated in a while, you're going to get this pop-up that says your forms are out of date, and then you'll click on the automatic update button. Aatrix is used for all tax forms, W-2s, 1099s, so there's a whole lot that get updated whether you're using Sage 300 payroll or not. So it takes a minute. Now you might get an error when you try to update, and that could be because you don't have permissions to run updates on your computer. If that's the case, have your IT people log in as domain administrator and then run the automatic update from here. I've already done that, so it's done this. It tells me updates complete. My forms have been updated, so I'm just going to close that. Now it's going to load the Aatrix. It says payroll tax forms, but it's payroll and 1099s. It's all together. So anyway, it's loading. So now it's going to ask me some questions. So if you just want to kind of see how it works, you can click on test drive. But I'm going to make the assumption that I've already reviewed my data and I'm happy with it, and I'm pretty sure it's going to be in good shape. So I'm just going to click on the third radio button and say no thanks, start processing my 1099s now. So I'm going to hit next. It's going to display my taxpayer ID and whether it's an EIN or a Social Security. This is sample data. This is not live data. So all this is made up. And then you have the option to do multiple 1099. So the only reason you would have multiple 1099 data files would be if you're importing them into Aatrix from somewhere else. But we're going to say single 1099 file, even though you might have miscellaneous and NEC. That's still considered a single filing for each type. So we're just going to say next. It's going to verify my company ID. I've already removed periods and commas, so I know it's going to be fine. So I'm just going to click next. Then it asks you, are you filing for your company and employer? Most Sage 300 users are doing this for their employer. So you're going to leave this first radio button checked. State withholding, I've got Maryland because that's where I'm located. This you can just blow by if you do not have withholdings in your 1099s. If you do, then you've got to edit and add your tax ID for state withholding. You've got to make sure this is accurate too, because if it's wrong, you're going to get a rejection, and then it's a pain to have to redo all that. So I don't, so I'm just going to cancel that and hit next. I don't have any local withholdings either, so there's nothing there. I'm just going to click next. Do you have any recipients who have elected to only receive electronic? No. That's a whole nother setup that you would have to do. So most of my clients just say no and move on. Okay, truncation. Always truncate your tax IDs. You can either use X's or stars. You do not want to physically mail out anything with a full tax ID for obvious reasons. So always, always truncate. Obviously, the federal and state forms that get uploaded by Aatrix will not truncate. But for things that you're sticking in the US mail, you want to truncate. And honestly, I'm really not sure what an RIN is, so I just leave that as it is. Okay, so now that it's we've answered all our preliminary questions, now it's going to load the Aatrix worksheet. This steps you through each thing for validation. So you can see we only have, this is not realistic, but in sample data we only have one NEC 1099. So the first thing it lets you verify your tax ID numbers. Now, assuming you've already done this in Sage, you can just click yes. It's going to do a validation, so if you're missing, if it's not a 10-character field, then it's going to come back and tell you you need to correct that. Now it says here to verify if federal EIN is checked, and it is in this case. So I can say next. Now, if it was a social security number, this field wouldn't be checked, and we'd need to populate the last name and the first name. That would get fed through by Sage. So I'm going to keep going. Now it's going to verify that the addresses, or the names actually, and I'm just going to click next because I'm making okay, so here's an invalid character in the name. So for the name, it'll actually strip that out. And so I can see what it is. My full name here is Mr. Carl Jenner. So there's a period there. So I'm going to say okay. Aatrix is going to rip that right out for us. And if I go back, you can see that the period after Mr. is gone. Same with the addresses. If I've got any periods, you unfortunately have to manually fix those. But it's just making sure. And then it says verify income boxes. You can see it's going to be box 3, other income. And, you know, I'm assuming this has been verified in Sage. Make sure the filing state is correct. I'm in Maryland, so that's good. And I'm going to hit next. I have no withholding, so I can just go by that. And now we've got the Aatrix login screen is going to come up. And we're not going to go too much further here, but anyway, you click on next. It's going to give you a quote here. If you do want, you can print your 1099s, but I mean, most people like to just let somebody else handle it. This is the quote. The minimum cost is $24.95. It goes up if you've got more than a certain number of recipients. So it's like $2.60 each. You could also say you wanted to print your 1099 copies yourself, but e-file the rest. I personally would rather let someone else handle this, so we're going to click next. The next question it asks you is about a PDF archive. You can see up here that's an extra $34.95. That would be with Aatrix. Most of my clients don't do that because it gets expensive. although you certainly could. And then I'll hit next. So now it's showing me what's about to happen. Based on my selections, review your data. We're going to send the 1099 miscellaneous, the 1096, and the payer 1099 miscellaneous. So it's going to open up and allow me to print those things out from my records. Okay. Now you wouldn't have to do this if you did the PDF archive. So what I do is I always just print these to a PDF. So I'm going to change that to Microsoft Print to PDF. And I'm hosted with ADSS Global, so I'm going to put this on my S drive. Okay, well actually I'll just stick it here. Create a folder called 1099 2023. And this one I would call 1099 miscellaneous Fed copy. And then I'm going to go next. And then once it loads, this is my 1096. I'm going to print that one to a PDF. You could print them out to paper too. Okay, that's the federal. If you had state ones, that would prompt you through that as well. Now this is the payer copy, so this is my copy. And I'm going to print that. PDF, 1099 payer or miscellaneous. All right. And then I'm going to hit next. And then it's going to have me log into Aatrix. So it's opening the Aatrix e-filing center. It's going to take a moment. And we're not going to go much further. So this is where you would log in. If you have not enrolled in Aatrix, then you would simply click on this sage300.aatrix.com. I'm going to click on that. It's going to open up a browser. And then it's going to let me enroll. So I'll open that up. Let's open up a browser. So that's HTTP, okay, sage300, aatrix.com. All right, so there's my Aatrix for Sage. So what you would do up here is you would click enroll. You'd put in your username. It can be like your name or your company name. It doesn't have to be your email. Password, so I'll just say Carol O. Password, you're going to want to make sure that you write this down because you're going to need it next year. And then you're going to put your contact information, your company information, and your EIN information. And you're going to get that set up and you're going to save changes. Okay. Now, once you have enrolled in Aatrix, you can add additional EINs to your Aatrix login. So if you've got multiple companies in Sage 300, you can have them all associated with this login. So I'm going to just show you a screenshot on what that looks like. Let's get to it here. We'll open it. So basically what happens, let's zoom in here. Zoom in. Here we go. So if you log in, once you've logged into Aatrix, you're going to click on the Companies tab. Your original, this is actually a client screenshot, so I blocked out the company, but your original, the company EIN and company name that you originally used for your user ID will show up here and here. If you need to add a new company, you click on this button here, and then you scroll down and fill in that information again, and then all of your EINs can be associated with Aatrix. So we'll minimize that, and we're not going to go any farther because this is all sample data and it's not real data. So anyway, I hope this was helpful. Please leave comments or contact adssglobal.net if you have any questions in the future. Have a great day.